of October 30th, 2024. Special welcome to a few new faces here. And I think this is our second meeting now back in the refurbished area. And if you will please give your attention to this short video. Terry Ann, thank you. 24. Special welcome to a few new faces here.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments.
And if you will please give your attention to this short video. Terry Ann, thank you. 24. Special welcome to a few new faces here.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. And
if you will please give your attention to this short video. Terry Ann, thank you. 24. Special welcome to a
public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Terry Ann. And now, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
Commissioner Fideli?
Here.
Commissioner/Representative Glover?
Here.
Commissioner Haskew?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Meadows?
Here.
Commissioner/Representative Nowak?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
Commissioner Sauce?
Here.
Vice Chair Hernandez-Thorpe?
Here.
Chair Arnrich?
Here.
Representative Foley?
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We have Representative Worth absent.
Great. Thank you, Terry Ann. And the next item is to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask anybody who's listening online, please mute, and if you'll stand and join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Now, this takes us to item number 3, which is for public comment, and this is an opportunity for anybody in the audience, either here in person or online, to make comment on anything that's not on our agenda. Anything that's on our agenda, we will call for public comment as each of those items come up. Terry Ann, do we have anybody online who would like to make public comment?
Yes, we have Debbie Toth.
All right. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chair, members of the board, staff, and public. My name is Debbie Toth, and I'm with Choice in Aging, and I just wanted to call in and share my appreciation for item F on the consent calendar. I really want to acknowledge staff and whoever brought this forward that we want to make meetings accessible for people with disabilities. So I want to share my appreciation for that. And I also want to say I'm back from sabbatical and ready to work on the accessible strategic plan. So let's get that puppy moving. And thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Debbie. Nice to hear your voice. Great.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else online who would like to make public comment on anything not on tonight's agenda?
No additional public comment.
Great. Is there anybody here present who would like to make comment on anything not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, did we have any written comment, Terry Ann?
No additional public comment.
Great, thank you. This will take us to item number 4A, and it's a pleasure to have one of our dear friends who has served so long on so many different levels of local government. But we're really honored here. Yes, we are talking about our Congressmember, Mark Desaulniers. Mark, welcome.
That's great hearing Debbie. I was sitting here thinking if 3 in the morning I start hearing your announcement that I heard 3 times earlier. And then I heard Debbie and I said, oh no, that's what'll come up at 3 in the morning. Why don't I have more money? Well, if Debbie, if you're listening, be kind to me. I'm here really to celebrate your work, our collaborative work, and the wonderful work your staff's done, including Tim, on our grant, a mega grant, the first in the country. $166 million for 680 with an incredible amount of thoughtful, smart transportation, efficient application of what the Biden administration and Secretary Buttigieg wants to do to these big metropolitan areas, is to be more conscious about how important we are. We need to do more in rural areas, but the 6 or 7 largest metropolitan areas, including the San Francisco Bay Area in particular, generate about 64% of U.S. GDP. So the federal government recognizing that people have long commutes, their careers are more mobile than they used to be, their jobs are more mobile, and this corridor is so important. And 101 is important for us, 80 is important, but 680 for our lifetimes has really grown exponentially. So this is a wonderful, wonderful grant to be part of. We had multiple conversations with the Secretary's office. I've had the chance to talk to him about what we're doing here. He came out to look at Gomentum. I unfortunately was on a trip and had already committed to it, but the Department of Transportation, the administration is very aware of your work. And I also want to thank Speaker Emeriti Nancy Pelosi, because she came up to me and said, how can I help? And naturally, I think the Secretary responded to her faster than he responded to me. But it's a Bay Area, in that sense, it's Contra Costa leading the way, but it's a Northern California and Bay Area collaboration because it's a regional project. So I just wanted to be here to thank you and help celebrate. It was really something, it's the biggest thing I've been involved with, successful involvement since the Fourth Corps and the War in the Caldecott. So it's good news. Expansion of Highway 4. You know, you stick around long enough, or you survive long enough, you can really appreciate the work that all of us have done and people who had these seats before us. I was in traffic, ironically, I told the chair this. I had a meeting at TriNet in Dublin in my district, and it got through at 4:30, so I got to drive home. And actually, it was really good until we got to where the HOV lane will be as a result of this funding. So it's all very exciting, and I just want to share that with you. And I'm just really proud to be a former commissioner and be part of decades worth of work by you and your staff to get this project done, and all the very many infrastructure and amenities and thoughtful ones we've been able to do in this county. And we still have challenges, obviously, but nice work.
Mark, thank you for your partnership and your leadership. You know, you started on the City Council in Concord, and you have always had a passion for transportation and moving people and goods, doing it in a safe manner. And if it wasn't for that passion, we wouldn't have all of these things together. And you're good at bringing people to the table. So thank you for all of that. And we look forward to seeing the results, and hopefully next time you drive here in another year or two, it should work.
I did think when I was driving about Alan Tauscher and Tom Torlix and all the people we're just one generation of carrying all this good work through. I had something funny to say. Oh, it wasn't funny. I started as a planning commissioner, and
I missed that.
we were just talking about, Julie Pierce and I still laugh when we talk about being a planning commissioner on transplant and how much we enjoyed that. So that's where I started to learn. Transplant. Oh yeah, that was a different one they put me on. When I became chair of the Board of Supervisors, you weren't there yet, Federal, I said, I only have one assignment that I want to change. I don't want to be assigned as the county's representative to Transpac. And the other 4 said, tough. You have to go to Transpac. And it's not that I didn't like it. It was just a lot of work. So thank you all very much for putting the long hours in and the thoughtfulness that you all contribute to this.
Mark, we look forward to working for you more. Thank you. Excellent. This will take us to item number 5, which is our consent calendar. And we have 2 items on there, approval of minutes and our consent items under APC and planning. Actually, tonight, and planning. Move down further in the agenda. Is there any public comments that we have on our consent calendar? And is there anybody in virtual audience or in present who would like to remove an item for discussion?
No public comment, written or verbal.
Okay, great, thank you. We will close public comment. Is there anybody on the board who would like to remove any items for discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Great, thank you, Aletta. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Renata. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Terry-Ann, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fideli?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Haskew?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauce?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez Thorpe?
Yes.
Chair Arnrich?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, everybody. This will now take us to our regular agenda items. We have 2 items tonight, item 8A and B. We'll start with item 8A, and this is the approval of the Contra Costa Interstate I-80 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, and there is a recommendation, and we're going to hear from Caltrans staff as well as ours. And Stephanie.
Here.
I had the wrong glasses on today. I left them in the car. I can't see at distance. I don't even know, well, I won't tell what I don't know, but I couldn't tell who was sitting there. So welcome, Stephanie. It's all yours.
Hi, I'm just here to introduce John Hsu from Caltrans District 4, who will be presenting this item. He is the office chief in the multimodal system planning at D4. We've been working with him and his staff on the development of the CMCP for the past couple years, and taking advantage of the committee structure that we have under Innovate 680, working with the technical staff as well as the electeds that sit on the Policy Advisory Committee on this corridor plan. So he's here to present on the item, giving you an overview of the corridor plan, as well as seeking an action, as is an action item, seeking your approval or adoption of this plan, which is a requirement to apply for the SB1 funding that we're working on the application that's due in November. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Fantastic. John, welcome. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for all the collaboration and work we've done together.
Good evening. My name is John Hsu. I'm the office chief for multimodal system planning at Caltrans District 4 Bay Area. So I'm here to present the Contra Costa I-680 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, or CMCP. That's a mouthful. So we are at a stage to, there it is. We are at a stage to approve this document. But before we do that, I want to provide an overview to this group. So I want to go over some of the basics of the CMCP. So what is a CMCP? The CMCP really aims to do 2 things. One, to identify corridor needs, multimodal corridor needs, and then 2, recommend projects to address those multimodal needs. I should emphasize that the CMCP is really a planning document, not a project. It's also not a programming document. So we're really about identifying needs and recommending projects. So why are we developing a CMCP for this corridor? The reason is twofold. First, Caltrans is required by law to do a long-range corridor planning for all our state highway corridors. And second, as Stephanie mentioned, we want to qualify corridor projects for SB1 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program, or SCCP. And I think when we started this process, our main goal was to support the northbound express lane completion project. I know there has been some changes to the project or to the funding application scope, but we still need the CMCP to be approved before we can qualify that project for funding. So here's the overview of the corridor. The CMCP covers the entire I-680 in Contra Costa County, including both the freeway main line and the ramps. We're also including parallel arterials, rail and transit services, including the new express bus that's going to be implemented. Bike and path facilities focusing on both freeway crossings as well as parallel facilities, as well as park and ride lots / shared mobility hubs. So it's really comprehensive and multimodal. Here's our overall schedule. The CMCP started back in 2022, so it's almost been 2 years now. So through most of 2023 and early 2024, we were busy completing different sections of the document, and now we're at the stage ready for document approval. I should note that, though, that we have done very robust engagement work throughout the development of the CMCP. Stephanie mentioned some of the coordination work we've done in coordination with the Innovate 680 group, but we have also done very robust public engagement in collaboration with CCTA staff. And I will talk about some of the engagement work later in this presentation. So I want to go over the final project list, which is arguably the most critical component of the CMCP. As you can see, we have grouped projects into different categories. So there are highway projects, including the northbound express lane, a couple of aux lane projects, as well as the I-680 State Route 4 interchange project. There are quite a few technology projects, for example, the Corridor Adaptive Run Metering Project, or CARM, as well as the Coordinated Adaptive Traffic Signals Project. There are also a number of transit projects we're including in the CMCP, such as the new express bus that's going to be implemented. There's the Bus on Shoulder project as part of Innovate 680. BART has a number of projects, so we added those projects to our plan as well. Then there's a quite long list of bike and path improvements, which I will discuss later in this presentation too. There's the County Connection Fleet Expansion Project, as well as the Landside Improvement Project for ferry service in Martinez. I mentioned the bike and path projects. And then there are shared mobility hubs, as well as EV charging stations. Last but not least, we are recommending a couple of studies as part of this CMCP, including a transit study, as well as a climate change adaptation study that will look at the sea level rise vulnerability at the 680 Marina Vista interchange area. So here's a map showing the projects. I know it's probably a little bit hard to read, so let me highlight some of the projects for you. First, along the 680 main line, you will see a dark orange line that represents the new express bus service. And just parallel to that line, there's a yellow line representing all the technology-focused projects. And then on the other side of the orange line is a green line for the northern half of the corridor, representing the northbound express lane completion project. And if you look toward the southern half of the corridor, you will see some purple lines representing the aux lane projects. There's a blue dot at the 680 State Route 4 interchange, representing the interchange improvement project. We have some greenish boxes showing these shared mobility hubs, as well as red balloons for the EV charging stations. I mentioned we have a long list of bike and path projects. That's why we decided to put those projects on a web map, and there's a QR code for that. So I should note that this web map shows not only the projects, but also other facilities, because we really view the benefits of the projects in a network. We want to have a complete back-and-path network, including both parallel facilities and freeway crossings to allow bicyclists and pedestrians to move along and across the corridor. And then at over 140 pages long, I understand the CMCP is not the most accessible document to all. So that's why we decided to put together a story map to highlight some of the key aspects of the CMCP that would allow the public to better access the information. So I'm going to run through a few screenshots to show the story map, but there's also the QR code. I should note that the screenshots really don't do the web maps justice, because you really want to check out the story map. So first we have, this is the landing page when you open the story map, and you have different tabs underneath on the screen for different sections of the story map. So I'm just gonna run through them very quickly here. So there's an introduction to the CMCP. We have included photos of different modes within the corridor. And then again, a little bit more background on the CMCP, as well as the project list, which I just discussed. And once you get into the project list section, you can actually look into some of the projects in greater detail, as the story map will highlight these major projects one by one with additional information. And then the last section of the story map is focused on the engagement work we have done. So we have highlighted some of the public engagement events we have attended. So they're shown here as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the final round of engagement we did. So as I mentioned, we coordinated very closely with the Innovate 680 group. So we have attended every single Innovate 680 TAC meeting, TAC CONNOW working group meeting to keep the group updated. And then once the draft document was finalized, or was developed, we shared it with the group for their review and comment. We also presented the draft final CMCP 2-3 CCTA groups, including the Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, as well as the Paratransit Coordinating Council. And last but not least, we also presented the CMCP to the Innovate 680 PAC back in July. So here is some of the key feedback we received. Overall, these presentations went very well, and committee members were all very much engaged. In terms of the comments or questions we received, there were a few questions about the difference between a CMCP and projects. For example, some questions were related to the project approval process or the environmental review process. So we were able to clarify that this is only a planning document. Its main goal is to recommend corridor projects for implementation. So each of the projects being recommended by this plan will go through its own project development process, including environmental review, and engineering document. And then there were some general questions on project funding, including the questions on the SB1 SCCP funding. I should note, though, although the CMCP will qualify projects for SCCP funding, the plan is really intended to be funding neutral. And from our experience, it actually helps funding application, because if a project sponsor can explain how their project aligns with the overall vision of the corridor, and if they can tell that story in their funding application, then that will make the funding application much more competitive. And also, we received quite some feedback on bike-related topics, such as complete intersections, bike parking. So we incorporated those comments into the final document. So in terms of the next steps, we are seeking document approval. And then after that, we also need to complete a CMCP self-certification checklist, which is also required for the SB1 SCCP funding application. And then after that, we do need to remediate the document for web accessibility before we can post it on our website. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take questions.
John, you did an incredible job to condense down an enormous amount of work. And both the websites you have, Caltrans put these together?
Yes.
They're really well done.
Right. Thank you.
And I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work to get there, but it's actually very easy to follow. And even on the map, you can look at it 33 different views, from a colored pencil to a blueprint, whatever style matches you. I've never seen that before.
Right.
But really well done, and we
Right, thank you.
appreciate
That
all
means
the
a lot
work.
to us.
And we appreciate the collaboration
Yes.
and the work that you had with us, and particularly the long list of stakeholders. So, questions of John at this point? Any questions? No, well done.
Thank you.
So that means we will open up public hearing, and I see Bruce standing up. So we'll go to comments from people who are, public comments from those that are present. Bruce, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Arnrich, Authority Board members, staff, and residents. I am Bruce Olson, East County's Mr. Bicycle. I'd like to start by saying routes of regional importance for motorists are routes of regional importance for bicyclists also. I'd like to say thank you to Caltrans for putting bike lanes on parallel arterial streets and crossings. But now the clinker. There's always a clinker. These bike lanes must be continuous all the way up to the limit line, and then on the other side of the intersection, continuing forward. And if you can do that, the bicycle community will be very happy. Thank you very much.
Bruce, thank you for your comments, as always. We really appreciate that. Is there anybody else here present who would like to make any public comments? And is there anybody online who would like to make comments?
No additional public comment.
Great. And Stephanie, is there any final words you want to say? We know our action, just so everybody's clear. The request of us is to adopt the plan, to approve it and adopt it. Caltrans then will actually do the formal adoption, which allows them to put it out for public review and comment. So, Stephanie?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Oh,
That
okay,
remind
good.
you it is an action item.
I saw the lettering
you.
there. I just didn't say that. Okay. So with that, we'll close public comment, and there were no written public comment?
No written public comment.
Okay, thank you. So any questions or comments from the board? Sue?
No, I was going to move the item.
Excellent. A second? Second. It's been moved by Sue Nowak, and Aaron Meadows has seconded. Any further comments? Seeing none, Terry, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Carlson? Commissioner Fideli?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover? Commissioner Haskew?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes?
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauce?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez-Thorpe?
Aye.
Chair Arnrich? Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Glover absent.
Sorry, Stephanie, and to John, thank you. Really great presentation. You know, it sort of seems so short for the number of years it took us to get us to this point, and the incredible number of stakeholder meetings that it took. And we thank all those people. We don't have a list of all their names, but there's a lot of people. And surprisingly, it was not a lot of our board members who were involved, so we really reached out to a very large stakeholder group. So for that, well, thank you. All right, this will take us to our next item, which is item number 8B. And this is very exciting. It's going to be by our executive director, and it's an update on Gomentum Station and operations. Tim, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair Armrich, and thank you, board members and commissioners. Today marks a 6-month anniversary of transitioning Gomentum Station. Oh, yeah, my video's not on, thank you. Yeah, it now marks a 6-month anniversary of transitioning Gomentum Station from AAA to Next Generation Mobility, and they officially took over operations starting April 1st of this year. And so we thought it was really important to come to the board and provide an overview of kind of what's happening at Gomentum Station. How is it going in terms of performance, financials, and also wanted to give you, it's been a while since we've talked about the Gomentum Station 2.0 initiative, and kind of give you some updates in terms of what's happening there, and then also want to provide you some previews and updates on what we're doing around the workforce development initiatives as well. So kind of a lengthy PowerPoint presentation, so bear with me, and then we'll open it up to questions. So first I want to really remind everyone that there's two important elements, to Gomentum Station. There's the actual testing facility, which is really agnostic of where that can be. We can operate it in multiple locations. We're currently operating it at Concord Naval Weapons Stations. And then there's the program. And the program really is a cornerstone of CCTA's innovation program, in which we call it the Redefining Mobility Program. Some overviews here in terms of how the partnership framework works at the Concord Naval Weapons Station is, first and foremost, you have the U.S. Navy, and we have the test facility, which is the Naval Weapons Station. And a big component of this is Concord, and Concord is actually pretty instrumental in terms of getting the autonomous vehicle master license that gives us access to the Naval Weapons Station. And way CCTA gets access is through a sublicense of that same AV master sublicense. And these are the two documents that provide us access to the facility, grants us the ability to test autonomous vehicles on certain roadways, and that is all documented through a memorandum of understanding with the city of Concord. And that is currently being updated right now and will be coming to the board at a future board meeting. And we then, the board in March of this year, approved the professional service agreement with Next Generation Mobility. And we're going to talk more and kind of refresh everyone's memory in terms of what that agreement is, what are the components of it, and how we've been executing that agreement with Next Generation Mobility. So some history here, October 16th, October of last year, AAA came to us, basically said they want to exit and cease operations by April 1st. We came to the board in February in terms of requesting some financial support to help Next Generation Mobility with the transition, and I'll provide some more updates on that. And then, as I mentioned, on March of this year, the authority approved the professional service agreement with NextGen, as well as approved the asset purchase agreement with AAA. And that was for the physical assets such as testing equipment, but also the transfer of the trademark, website, domain, et cetera. And so it was a full transfer. And then, as I've already kind of provided updates, we have successfully, as of April 1st, with no downtime whatsoever, we successfully transitioned from AAA to NextGen, and our partners had continuous operations through that. And I will say that was a huge undertaking. And so a big shout out to CCTA staff, working with Jack, as also working with Next Generation Mobility and Kevin Romick, who's the executive director, as well as Advanced Mobility Group. So this gives you an idea of the structure and kind of where we're at with all of these agreements. And so at a very high level, on the top are all the entities that have been involved. And on the left is all of the agreements, and on the right really gives you a demonstration of what has been completed over the last leading up to April 1st, and then also what needs to happen in terms of the future. So as I mentioned, April 1st, we were able to have a seamless operations, which means that Next Generation Mobility had to execute a brand new test bed services agreement with all of the commercial vendors. We also had to satisfy all the insurance requirements. There was a huge negotiation with Navy on the AV master license, which I'll be talking about that in a moment. And it really came down to the wire, and it to the extent that we actually negotiated with the Navy to allow us to use the previous AV license, because the current AV license that we are operating on, we did not get that until August of this year. And so there was about a 3-month 5-month period, no, that'd be 4 months, a 4-month period at which we were under kind of on a month-by-month operations with the Navy relative to the previous AV license that was executed with AAA and our previous sub-license agreement with the Navy. And so that was a huge negotiation with the Navy in order to make that happen. The agreements that need to be executed in the future are an MOU with the City of Concord, which is essentially a commitment of 5 years at the Naval Weapons Station. We do need to have an MOU with the county, which will help memorialize our relationship in terms of the coordination with the sheriff and with fire and the schedule. And then I'll talk more about this as well, but we also are going to be executing an agreement with East Bay Regional Park District and memorializing our relationship there. This is where we kind of ended up in terms of the AV license, with one exception, and that's Kinney Boulevard. So if you look at the 2 double red lines going through the property, that is Kinney Boulevard. And through negotiations with the Navy, we were explicitly prohibited to test autonomous vehicles on Kinney Boulevard. And now Kinney Boulevard is now strictly an ingress-egress access road for the entire facility. That did impact our revenue streams because there was a partner that exclusively used Kinney Boulevard. And so we did lose a partner on that, which was kind of hit our bottom line in terms of revenue. But we now primarily test within Bunker City, which is where all those flags are at on the bottom there, where it says 2, 4, 5, 6, and 3. And then the yellow area, which is the urban downtown area. So we're not allowed to test in the tunnel area, which is the blue area underneath Highway 4. We're no longer allowed to test under Kinney, and we're no longer allowed to test which is called Lookout Loop, which is the kind of red windy road where number 7 is at on the right-hand side. So luckily, in terms of utilization, the Lookout Loop was not highly utilized. The tunnel road is not highly utilized, but as I mentioned, Kinney Boulevard is highly utilized. So within the AV master license, this really dictates all of these things in terms of how the program operates. And this is something we're really looking forward to in terms of building trust with the Navy and with the city, with Next Generation Mobility and CCTA as the owner-operator, to help maybe hopefully expand some of these things with the renewal of our upcoming AV license. The AV license gets updated annually, as well as the sub-license gets updated annually. And so, but the AV master license basically dictates the hours. It dictates kind of mechanics around training and ingress and egress and security. Also dictates what we can improve and not improve. And the Navy's current position is we're not allowed to improve anything at the moment. We're basically required to use the facility as is, based on kind of historical use, obviously with the exception of Kinney. The next bullet is what I just explained. We have to report incidents. We have to have, there's requirements for special requests such as media, weekend testing, nighttime testing, environmental requirements, and insurance requirements. So that's the mechanics of the program. And through that program, are working with professional service. We're working through a professional services agreement with Next Generation Mobility to really perform on our sub-license and that AV master license. And so there's a lot of requirements, a lot of agreements, and primarily CCTA handles all the public partnerships, and NextGen handles all the private partnerships. But the professional service agreement, just as a refresh, is a 5-year agreement. It explicitly notes that CCTA owns the program, the rights to Gomentum, and all the physical assets at the facility, that we have priority access. NextGen is the day-to-day manager. There's also commitments relative to documents, which I'll get into in a minute. And there's also now kind of teeth to the agreement in terms of performance around liquidated damages. These are the kind of responsibilities. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is it's been a really good partnership with Next Generation Mobility and working with Kevin on site. They, and generally as the relationship here is, we're relying on them to basically operate the facility, day-to-day, testing facilitation, telling us what improvements the partners need, as well as planning coordination. And then our job is to help facilitate and really support NextGen in terms of that public agency coordination, getting permits, design. Something new in the agreement is really explicit direction around CCTA's role relative to design and construction oversight, which was not there in the previous agreement. And also another explicit role I think that CCTA has now is really on the marketing and outreach side of it. So, prior with AAA was doing it all. They were doing the marketing, the outreach, the collateral, the website, everything. And because now CCTA owns and operates, one of our kind of primary roles is to really develop the marketing materials. So for example, if you go out to Gomentum Station, the signs, the banners, the marketing material, the collateral, the website, all of those things are being developed now by CCTA and out of the Director of External Affairs and our communications team with Lindy and Michael. These are all the required documents, and those are the updated and complete. So one of the first things that was required was an operational safety plan, and that was completed within 30 days, and it is now annually updated. The 5-year strategic plan is due 12 months from the anniversary of operation, so that'll be April 1st of next year, as well as the master area plan. And we set that up that way to at least give NextGen an opportunity to understand the operations, understand the partners' needs, and then we can then get that report at the end of the first year. The annual budget is also given annually, and it's given to CCTA upon request. And that'll also be coming at the anniversary date as well. Again, better understanding the operations and getting that budget. And then the program inventory is actually an asset inventory. And that was due upon 30 days of the execution of the agreement, which they've given that. And it really outlines all the assets. And the key part of the program inventory is that we didn't want to end up in the same situation we did with AAA, where we'd have to purchase all these assets from if we ever did transfer or change entities. And so the agreement explicitly says that the program inventory needs to be continually updated with all the assets on site, and any assets that NextGen would purchase to support the program. And it's available upon request by CCTA. And whatever's in that program inventory is actually part of the program and would transfer at no cost to CCTA if we ever did switch entities. And that was a big component of the professional services agreement. And then financial reporting. So financial reporting, NextGen has been very, very supportive and very, very, very collaborative in terms of sharing their financials, way more so than AAA ever was. And so Kevin and the team have been very, very transparent in terms of what the reporting is, the quarterly financials. We've gotten basically, if you think about the calendar year, Q1, there was not a lot of operations, but we now are getting reports on Q2, and we just received Q3. And really the financial reporting in the professional agreements is that quarterly reporting, but also the ability to kind of transfer funds. So Kevin and NextGen are able to request appropriations of funds from CCTA, which it was demonstrated in that allocation in February. And then we're also able to request for reimbursement beyond our revenue sharing. And that has to be discussed on a case-by-case basis. So the revenue sharing, just a reminder, is 10% of the gross revenue or a minimum of $500,000. And so that'll be determined on the anniversary date of April 1st when we get basically Q4 financials from Next Generation Mobility. And then obviously liquidated damages. So in February, CCTA approved a $1 million loan to Measure J to support the operations and transition. We've negotiated a 7-year repayment schedule based on an interest rate and variable based on LAIF. And there has been payments made quarterly, and so far, NextGen has made two payments on those on the FIR, and so they're staying in compliant in terms of the performance of the amortization and payments made quarterly. And so this will continue to track this, but we do anticipate that Next Generation Mobility will be doing some more advanced payments as the financials get a little bit more healthier, and I'll get into that in a moment. This is the current financial reporting in terms of revenue and expenses. You can see that on a revenue perspective, there was a ramp-up period on revenue from the testbed partners. And right now, we're tracking right around 1.1 million per quarter. So if you kind of project that out, that'll be roughly about $4.5 million per year in total revenue. As you can see, the expenses, based on the ramp-up, based on, there was a lot of things that AAA kind of took and didn't leave behind, and so there was a massive investment in kind of upfront expenses in order to get the facility up and running on the same level in par that AAA was at. And in my opinion, I think we're doing it even better. And so the expenses, that $1 million, that loan, that has been really set up as kind of I'll call it like an equity line of credit. And NextGen they did a first request about $800,000. They did another request of $200,000. So that $1 million has been fully spent, and it's demonstrated in the $2.2 million of expenses. And so that gives you a net income about $720,000. Now their reporting is based on a cash basis, not accrual. And so they're anticipating about a $700,000 in terms of cash accrual from testbed partners, which will bring them even in Q4. This is the assets and liabilities, and this is really Brian's job here. I really have tasked Brian, our Chief Financial Officer, really to kind of dive into these financials, and he's been fantastic in terms of really watching over the financials, making sure that they're getting and will be incorporated into CCTA's financials when we do our annual budget next year, as we kind of think about Gomentum Station as a CCTA asset in our budget. But these are the total assets. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. But you can see, I will point out that you can see the FIR liability there, $928,000. That's the difference based on the two payments that has been made to CCTA. So in terms of activities over the last 6 months, NextGen has been staffing up. They've been hiring and training staff. They've, like I mentioned, Kevin is the executive director, and then they've hired 2 staff. One is the operations manager, and then another one is like an assistant operations manager that helps on the day-to-day on-site. And then obviously they've been working on a lot of maintenance issue and then quite frankly, a lot of deferred maintenance, because I think AAA was kind of checked out most of last year. And so there was a lot of deferred maintenance that needed to happen. Obviously we had to establish the financial accounting, but operations, we had to make sure all the insurance, we had to get the reservation system back up because AAA did not give us access to their previous reservation system. So we had to pretty much build it from scratch. And then legal, all the agreements were executed. In terms of moving forward, this is really things that are looking forward over the next 6 months. But improvement on charging, which has been a request of our partners, improvement of the Signal Lab, communications and power is really key. They want more wireless communication and better communication out there. That's a common request by the partners. Continue with that deferred maintenance. And then administration-wise, they're going to follow through on their commitments in terms of the master plan, strategic plan, and reporting, et cetera. So another kind of key development is Glideways. East Bay Regional Park District, we've been in strong negotiations with East Bay Regional Park District. They made a request about a year ago for Glideways to exit Gomentum Station. This is their current facility. And we made a we tried to negotiate with East Bay Regional Park District. We did negotiate an extension to the end of this year. And so they are now scheduled to move to Richmond Hilltop Mall. And they will be now, and that is intended to happen by the end of this year. That date, we would love to extend that date. We have tried to extend that date. Glideways would love to have about 3 more months to be able to not impact their transition and testing and performance of their testing. I don't think we're going to be able to accommodate that. And so I think right now we're really focused on working with the city of Richmond to accelerate their improvements to Richmond Hilltop Mall for what we call their Glideways development facility. So this has been a big development. It's very unfortunate. And just to give you some background on this, the reason why that they are asking us to exit is their public benefit conveyance strictly prohibits commercial use of the property. And so when they signed their public benefit conveyance about 2 years ago, this has been kind of a target or ongoing discussion with Park District. And so knowing that, this is something that can be legally challenged by the National Park Service, because the National Park Service oversees the commitments that the Park District is making on the public benefit conveyance. And so there's explicit language in there that if National Park Service sees any issues with satisfying the requirements in their agreement, they can explicitly kick Park District out of the property entirely.
I'd just like to add
Yeah.
that East Bay Regional Parks has been really cooperative. to be
Very
honest.
cooperative, yeah.
Tim and I and Chris met with them, and they actually gave us what we were asking for. As you know, in new technologies, sometimes things take a little longer. They're within 3 months, but they were already within a 12-month extension. They just happen to be, if you've been out there lately, they're just testing their final vehicles that will actually be on the road. I mean, the vehicles are there, so they're really close. But as Tim's described, we have done everything, and I really think East Bay Regional Parks has went a long ways. There were some prior management issues by the other entity that used to oversee all of Gomentum that may not have lived up to some of the prior agreements. We did correct those and got those fixed. But I do want to make it that East Bay Regional Park has done a really good job. But it's coming to that confluence of a new technology being developed. That takes a little bit longer. As they say, it's close in, horseshoes and you know what. They're really close. So that last 90 days may cost them another 9 months by moving, of actually getting it out, because you got to reestablish all that. But East Bay Regional Parks has done a good
They've
job.
been very cooperative. We've been working very closely with them in terms of, again, the negotiations. They did give us exactly what they want, which was an extension to the end of this year. And so we're working very closely with Glideways to get them to exit the facility by the end of the year to satisfy our commitments to the Park District. The other development I think is kind of exciting is that we did receive the Hold-On Mover to Gomentum Station for the month of November, and we've given a number of tours to about 40 people over the last month, and it's actually leaving Gomentum Station on Friday afternoon. So we have if you're interested in seeing it, please reach out to Lindy and Michael Blasky, and they can hopefully give you a tour before the end of the week. But this is really exciting. This is the kind of next generation shuttle, and it's been exciting to kind of share this with some significant folks in the Bay Area, including Jim Wonderman. And it was fun to have Jim out at Gomentum Station. He didn't realize how much we were actually doing at Gomentum Station, the workforce development programs, and we have some more follow-up to do with Jim on that in terms of really focusing on Gomentum Station 2.0 and workforce development. And he was very highly supportive in terms of, how can we leverage Gomentum Station to help develop kind of new technologies, new business models to make public transportation more cost-effective. And he was very, very echoing that during our meeting.
I would just add that this shuttle is the one that we visited in Germany a few weeks ago. This is the first in the world of a purpose-built, which means it's built specifically as an autonomous vehicle. There's no steering wheel. There's none of that stuff. It holds 15 passengers, and they're being built in the United States. The factory's under construction right now. It's on the East Coast. We're really fortunate to get this. And we just had yesterday Alexander Mayron from Bishop Ranch Sunset Development was here looking at these, because as you know, they have one of our programs running their autonomous shuttle, but that can only run 14 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour in their parking lot. This can run on arterial streets and go up to over 40 miles an hour. And it runs on streets, and it has the latest and greatest of one of the world's two best autonomous vehicle software companies that have really performed worldwide. Extraordinary. If you do have a chance to see it, it's pretty cool. The interior and the exterior is designed by Pininfarina, and one of their big clients is Ferrari. Obviously, they went after a big name company, but they really understand pure design, and it's pretty cool to see. And it's got every kind of bell and whistle security, threat detection built into that. So if you have a chance to see it, it's at the north side of the freeway. You can see it in about 15 minutes.
So that's a good segue into Gomentum. So just a refresh on Gomentum 2.0. This is about, right now our utilization is high and as it possibly can be at Gomentum Station, and thinking about expansion and really creating a proving ground. And so just to refresh, this is what a proving ground is, right? And so this is our vision in terms of really building this in Contra Costa County along the northern waterfront. It really supports homologation in terms of, from sketch, all the way to production. So if you think about the Holon shuttle, you've got this static kind of demonstration. How do you get that vehicle to be able to be durable, reliable on public roads, safe, and test the amenities or the powertrain, electronics, et cetera. So that's all being done at a proving ground. So jumping into what we've been talking about with U.S. Steel and give you a few updates on that. So we have had some really exciting conversations with U.S. Steel. We are definitely in the game with U.S. Steel. I think the transfer or the sale of the property conversations are really being delayed with the acquisition of U.S. Steel by Nippon Steel. And so that's a real big factor in all of this. But what's interesting is because we're a public agency, they're interested in really continuing the conversation with us, even while they're kind of in dormant conversations, with others, which is really, really good. And so we actually submitted a public-private partnership proposal to U.S. Steel for this piece of property. And what the proposal is that rather than them selling the property, we would lease the property, the entire 450 acres. But this is where the public-private partnership really comes into play, is that we would do like a ramp up. So what we would do is we would utilize a portion of the property for a certain zone or 2 or 3 zones, not the entire, and then rent and utilize that piece. And then we would then continue to build out components of this proving ground over time until we were at full build out over a period of about 5 years, and then we'd be able to generate essentially enough revenue and have net revenue to be able to pay the full lease payment on the property. And so through the conversations with U.S. Steel, they are very interested in helping in providing access of their current facility as is for actual autonomous vehicle testing. And so we're working with our partners, and we've identified 3 locations where we feel are really beneficial to our partners to use as is. And I'm going to hopefully, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this area right here would be used for kind of workshops. And then basically this large area here, we would turn it into like a braking facility, which is more formally called like a vehicle dynamic area. They have existing office spaces right here that we would lease for partners. And then also there's areas here, this kind of loop around this dirt area we would use. And then there's also about 1.5 miles piece of roadway here that we're looking to use. So, so we're in conversations with them, making sure we don't impact, obviously, some of the environmental sensitive areas on the property. But this is a really good step forward in terms of working directly with U.S. Steel, not necessarily working with Brookfield, but working directly with Steel, and really talking about the public benefit in terms of Pittsburgh has been, our kind of pitch is that U.S. Steel really has been an element, foundational element to the city of Pittsburgh and eastern Contra Costa County for over 100 years. And so rather than sell the property and take risk on that, let's let them be a fabric of continue to be a fabric of the community in terms of really helping and generating jobs at this location in a new and different way. And so that's kind of been our pitch to U.S. Steel, and they're very open to it. I think what's I think advantageous to them is they like our proposal in terms of we would come in and basically cap the entire site from an environmental perspective. And that what makes them, because what they're really nervous about is really what else you're going to find on site in terms of environmental. And so they're really interested in our proposal in terms of capping the entire site. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that, but there's been some really great progress in terms of this facility. Workforce development, I think you remember this slide, but Lindy and the team have been really working closely in terms of developing a pathway. And a good example of a pathway is what we did with Maine Mobility at the Martinez project, where we took a bus driver and we developed that pathway to turn them into an autonomous vehicle operator. And the way we did that is the pathway is it starts with online training, then it goes to not on-site, but training at Gomentum Station in a secured environment. So basically really focused on, okay, when do you take over the vehicle? How does the software work? And doing that in a secured environment, Gomentum. And then you go to on-site training at the actual physical project location. And then the fourth step is that you would then get a DMV permit as an autonomous vehicle operator, which is really a thing, similar to a driver's license. And so we developed this career pathway for A2U bus drivers. And so that's what this is all about in terms of really focusing on that upskilling, reskilling, and transitioning the existing workforce. So some background, I think you're already aware of this, but we did this national scan of best practices. And these are some of the things that we think make really strong workforce development programs. And we categorize that among what we found nationally. And to no surprise, all those states that you see there are all the states that are pretty much our competitors. But what we did find is if you look at, all the check boxes in terms of public-private partnership, governance, programming, pathways, funding, you can see there where Michigan kind of stands out, Minnesota stands out, Pennsylvania stands out, Texas stands out. So those are kind of the states that we felt had best-in-class programs. So through that best-in-class work, we felt like to kind of continue this workforce development initiative, Lindy and I and others have been to the state. We've been talking with the secretary. We've been talking with the California Workforce Development Board. We've been talking with GoBiz about developing a statewide innovation alliance. And that's exactly what we did. We actually, and you're going to hear more about this at the November board meeting, so I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a teaser. But this is the Gomentum Innovation Alliance that we're setting up. It'll have both a statewide advisory board that we have a lot of great interest of being part of, and then also like a smaller regional working group that kind of the day-to-day get work done. And those are the goals at the bottom in terms of what this group would be really looking at. And obviously we'll be prioritizing certain things over others, particularly automation. But we've been talking with the union, the labor unions. They are interested in participating in this. We've been talking with universities and academia. They are interested in participating in this. And so what we'll be bringing to you in November is really a complete framework, and then basically getting your input into the framework, and then moving into the next steps to formally invite others to this Gomentum innovation. Our hope, we'll learn more this in November, is really to kind of take this on, but then kind of give it birth, and then look for someone to help ultimately to facilitate it over a long period of time, and I think we're going to facilitate kind of creating it, getting it going, and really using this Gomentum Innovation Alliance to oversee gaps and needs analysis as well as program development. So speaking about gaps and needs, this is like our overall approach in terms of gaps and needs approach. I probably should have made the graphic just slightly bigger. I apologize. But we're basically looking at, really targeted roles and targeted sectors. So what are the types of roles that need to exist to make this technology successful? Again, developing those career paths. And then what are the sectors that are involved in terms of those pathways? So for example, as you talk to, say, May Mobility, or even Beep, you talk to the private sector, they're going to need remote assistant operators. Well, how do you develop a career pathway for remote assistance operators? And so that's what this gaps and needs assessment will really look at, and really figure out what are the needs and prioritize the needs. And then we would then focus on work on actual program development. I'm actually going to the County Board of Supervisors to present this in much more detail on Tuesday, because we are looking, hopefully, to really look to potentially a Measure X request from CCTA for the program development after the conclusion of the gaps and needs assessment. So I think that concludes my presentation. Happy to go back to any slides that you would like to go to. Sorry for the lengthy presentation, but there's been a lot happening over the last 6 months around Gomentum Station and Gomentum Station 2.0 and the Workforce Development Initiative.
Tim, thank you. Really great news. I would just add that one of the things Tim didn't say it really clearly, but on the relationship with U.S. Steel, they've actually offered for Gomentum 2.0 to start testing there, and they're not charging rent. Just if their utility cost goes up a little bit or security cost goes up, that's all they're asking for us to cover.
Difference in cost.
Yeah,
difference in cost.
Difference.
Yeah.
And what that creates is an opportunity for Gomentum and our partners on that to get more testing, which creates even more revenue. We're at $4.5 million, which meets the goal that we thought. This would enhance that, and it also gets the other type of testing, because it gets back to that long 1.5 mile straightaway. So they can get up to 60 miles an hour and run into something and see how it performs.
And Chair Armour, just one other thing I forgot to add is on the labor side. So we have taken ATU and labor out to Gomentum Station 3 times now in the last 6 months. And through that relationship and kind of putting where our money, where our mouth is on the May Mobility project and developing both a relationship at the statewide and international level, I'm happy to report that, and I know this for a fact, that CCTA is the only agency in the United States that has been approved by the ATU Executive Board, International Executive Board, to engage with on autonomous vehicles. And that was specific to getting them engaged on the Innovation Alliance and the work that we're doing there, as well as hopefully future, career pathways. And it's been a great partnership with ATU, and they're actually really thinking about how we can leverage our model and kind of train and coach others in terms of how to do it. And we're going to be actually doing a speaking opportunity with ATU in January, which I think is first of its kind to do ATU and CCTA and others talking about this in public the way we are with ATU, because obviously they're very cautious. And so we're really excited about that partnership and continuing that relationship.
Great, Tim, thank you. So this is just an informational item, so opportunity for questions or comments. Scott?
You specifically mentioned that the Kinney Road is not accessible according to the Navy. Is there no wiggle room on that one at all? Are they just hard?
So what we did in negotiations for Kinney, we worked really closely, Advanced Mobility Group and NextGen. We actually developed a plan that would better control traffic on Kinney during times at which testing is occurring. Because I think that was one of the biggest issue was Kinney was basically AAA was leaving it up to the testing partners to do their own traffic control. So it was kind of a little bit of the wild, wild west. And quite frankly, it really kind of put a sour taste in some of the folks that were traveling through there because of the way it was being done. And we knew that. And so we came up with a plan, hey, can we do this? And it was just a no, absolute no. Now, with that being said, I think we're trying to really build a really good relationship with Navy, build a good with the city of Concord, and because this is new for them, as much as we've been involved from day one, us as the owner operator is different. It's different, and for CCTA and for the Navy, and so hopefully what we'll be able to accomplish is that we build that trust, and then we make that request, and hopefully it gets approved. And if it, yeah.
I was going to say, it gets back to what? Our motto is promises made, promises kept. It didn't happen before. So they are looking at us to see if we're keeping our promises.
Yeah.
Thus
And
far,
there's
we have.
no opportunity to build a parallel or a facility that replicates that?
No.
Not at Gomentum. That's why U.S. Steel offers.
No ground disturbing activity is allowed at the Naval
Okay, you
Weapons
can
Station.
repair what you've got, but that's about it. So U.S. Steel, the long road section might be the
Mile and a
future,
half.
or at least the near future for that kind of work.
Kind of, because what was really great about Kinney is it really simulated that highway environment, because you had double yellow, 2 lanes, and it was curvy, and that's really what that testing partner was really looking for. It was a really unique piece of infrastructure, that was available right here in the Bay Area. And I think that stretch on in U.S. Steel could potentially, but it wouldn't be curvy, wouldn't be that highway environment. I don't know if it would completely satisfy that partner.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Renata?
Thank you, Tim, that was fascinating.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
very much. The U.S. Steel facility, is there activity there right now?
Zero activity.
Zero. And under the best-case scenario, what in terms of workforce development could one imagine if this proceeds as we would like?
The workforce could really happen anywhere. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily need to happen at U.S. Steel. I think, one of the direct career pathways I think we want to start working on is this remote assistance, because I think it's going to be a much harder thing to do in terms of kind of developing that pathway, training, and buy-in. So I think what we want to do is try to mock up like a mini command center that would then emulate what a remote operator would be doing, and then we would do the training, in terms of how to interface with the vehicle, how to communicate with the vehicle, how to deal with alerts from the vehicle. And so those are all things that a remote operator would be looking at, and they would be doing it for multiple vehicles. And so that particular workforce pathway could be done anywhere. We can really simulate a command center, hopefully at Gomentum Station or U.S. Steel or anywhere. But I think one of the workforce development, kind of programs that I think we're going to be proposing as part of kind of program development is really on the youth side. So we're going to develop like a youth program, as well as, the downside of losing Glideways at Gomentum Station is that they were so accommodating for tours and for like STEM programs and so forth, and so I'm taking a 4th grade elementary school out there on Friday, and they've got the VR headsets, they've got the vehicles. It's a very great place to demonstrate technology and opportunities, and we're losing that, unfortunately. And so one of the things I know Kevin's working on, and I know we're working on, is hey, how can we kind of simulate that, And so I think one of the opportunities is develop like a STEM lab at Gomentum Station. That's one opportunity. And then really bring in that VR experience and bring in that kind of direct interaction, with folks as we bring them to Gomentum Station. So those are some of the workforce development opportunities. But I think the other opportunities are going to be really better identified through this gaps and needs analysis. I think once we finish the gaps and needs analysis, we'll have a better sense of exactly what these programs are going to look like.
Thank you.
Any other, yes, Paul?
Yes, I have a couple questions. On your slide about the budget, your expenses and revenues, do you expect, this is transitioning away from AAA, right? Do you expect in the next couple of years for those expenses to be going down? Yes?
Yeah, I
So
think.
you've made most of the...
Yeah, I think we're definitely expecting expenses to go down. I think, like roughly right around, we're kind of targeting right around $70,000 to $100,000, per month. Now, I will give one caveat to that. Okay, is we are basically looking at how we can expand services, you know, and how we can improve hours of operations. And so if we have longer days and longer hours, that's going to cost more money, you know. And so I think as we look for opportunities to improve operations and to improve revenue, I think expenses slightly could go up, you know. I mean, one of the other things that we're also doing is we are, there's the Spanish company Idiata, who manages the proving ground at China and also in Barcelona. One thing I forgot to mention is we have requested some proposals from Idiata to help with optimizing operations, but also helping us with the operations at U.S. Steel. And so, you know, I will say that, you know, that entering in and bringing them involved might cost more money, you know, in terms of expenses. So I think, but if we were going to be status quo, to answer your question would be yes.
Okay.
Yeah, almost by half, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the good news.
Yeah.
And the fact is there's more demand than we can handle, which means there's more
More
revenue out
revenues
there.
to come,
Yeah,
right.
so trying to, us understand it in next gen, which we never had that into knowledge, it's getting better. And we already know that it's easy to get to the 4.5 million. How do you get up to 7.5? Those are win-win propositions. Okay, good.
And I was just curious about, once Glideways does move to Richmond Hilltop, is that land then open as public parkland?
It is. Yeah, I
What
mean,
is the park? Is it a park?
it's a park, yeah.
What's it
Natural.
called?
The
Very
Thurgood,
natural.
What is it
yeah.
called?
Natural. There
No,
are
it's,
no
the-
improvements.
it's
Oh.
the Thurgood Regional,
Oh, it
the
is the
Thurgood
part of
Marshall
Thurgood.
Regional Park.
Oh,
Yeah,
part
they
of
have a
the
beautiful
Yeah.
design for it. The question is, when will that start? That's unknown at this time.
And the park district is planning to do benches, restrooms, or, I mean, not-
That's, yeah, they've got a master plan.
buildings.
They've got
Okay.
a master plan, and so, I mean, but I've reviewed the master plan. So with the master plan, basically, they have a visitor center, obviously parking, those things. But their plan is to kind of remove certain existing rail lines within the property and replace that with paved trails and walking trails. And then I think the goal is to turn the entire park into very much an interpretive center that's going to be really focused on the Port Chicago 50 and kind of the history of the park and the history of the Naval Weapons Station.
Well,
And
that's
we-
good, 'cause instead of just sitting there, not having something planned, it makes me feel a little.
We also did offer, this is part of our goodwill, since we have an incredible team of transportation planners. They were looking at some movement within their park that we offered to design, help do a master plan and propose an autonomous vehicle system, which is environmentally clean, all of that to help them. So as they move forward in their plan, they were going to look at, it could be a Glideways solution, it could be an individual shuttle solution, but they're very interested in that as well.
You're saying that is a possibility in the
Yes.
future? Okay.
Yeah, and we offer to help design it in the goodwill of what they have been helping us with, so.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
Yeah, it's another path here. Your education opportunities. I'm hoping, and I'm sure you're already thinking this way, that it's more than just autonomous vehicle operators. I've been in the world of testing for decades, and there is plenty of opportunity for mechanical technicians, electrical technicians, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. There's a whole cadre of people that do testing, and none of them are autonomous vehicle operators. And so if you have a work site and an education site that are in close proximity, there's great value in those opportunities. And so I'm hoping that the education opportunities go far beyond autonomous vehicles by themselves.
Yeah, 100%. I think actually, if you go back to this right here, these are some of the goals, but you're absolutely right, Commissioner Perkins. The idea here is really focus on all opportunities. And so this could be operators, maintenance, technicians, you know, and so I think that's really, you know, it could be lots of things.
As well as engineers, because.
Engineers, and I think that's again what this gaps and needs analysis is going to do, is really flush out like all those opportunities.
And all of those kinds of jobs are really good paying jobs.
Right.
They are not minimum wage jobs, even at $20 an hour, they're not.
It'd be much more than that, but that's why UC Berkeley UC Davis.
I was going to say,
UC
hopefully
Merced.
Davis has a fabulous engineering program out there.
Right, and what they're after is, there are no degrees in designing vehicles like this. So what they're looking at is, how do you find a career path through an educational at high school, all of those levels. So, yeah, I think that's why this is a win-win. And we're starting with the obvious, is the people who would first interface. And then all the people that are designing the people, there's like you, Scott, all these various backgrounds, they knit them together and you come up with something. Now, how do you create a career path that's the sum total of that? So,
Yeah, and just to emphasize, I mean, it's not shown on the map, but to your point about bringing that workforce and the site together, our goal is to develop an actual community college campus workforce center at Gomentum Station. So the idea is to have a facility that supports it as well at Gomentum Station, so they could, do the workforce training and then actually just literally be able to drive out on site and do real world testing, which, a lot of universities, none of the universities have that kind of facilities. And so that's why, a lot of the academia folks who we talk to, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, Mineta, community colleges, that's why they're really excited about this, because the hopefully in concept that the business model works, the idea is that this facility would be offered through revenues by Gomentum, and then they just rent, they're just basically renting the space to be able to do those workforce development programs.
Chris?
Yes, regarding the proving ground, would this essentially be an extension of Gomentum? And so in the short term, you said maybe we could go out there, would people be like testing vehicles around there without us having to cap the whole area right away? And could this possibly generate more revenue in the short term to make up for what we're losing by not being able to use Kinney Boulevard?
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. Yeah, so that is, you're spot on, and there's just trying not to share all the plans,
Okay.
quite frankly, but I think the idea is that this U.S. Steel facility, both in the interim, but also in the ultimate proving ground, would be an extension of the Naval Weapons Station. So we would continue to operate both facilities, over time, so. And what we're doing is looking at the Naval Weapons Station kind of being what we call the ADAS, Automated Driving Assistance System types of programs. And then you've got really the proving ground stuff over at the U.S. Steel. But to your point, yes, what the idea is those three areas I mentioned,
Yeah.
we build those out immediately, not necessarily, and using a lot of the existing pavement and obviously with some improvements. And so what we would do is build that out, and then that'll generate more revenue. And then what'll happen is hopefully over time, and that's the public-private partnership, is that we build like 3 zones, that builds revenue, and that builds up enough revenue to where we can build like 3 more zones, and then that builds
Got it.
up revenue. And so we're basically building as we're collecting, building as we collect, build as we collect, and then over a period of, say, 5 to 7 years, based on performance and revenue collection, we build out the whole proving ground, basically.
Okay, and then people could be testing vehicles that are not autonomous, maybe just like a regular proving ground, they could test other kinds of vehicles.
Correct.
Yeah, so I look forward to seeing the proposal if it comes
And
to the fore.
yeah, and I think, and then the other interesting thing is because we're by the, it's not only just to think about just vehicles. I mean, the whole purpose of the site is to really focus on all emerging mobility. So because we're on the waterfront, you'll like this. It's because we're on the waterfront, we would test new ferry technologies,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
and then we would and because we're out of the airspace of the Naval Weapons Station, we'll be able to actually test urban air mobility and electric charging. And one of the things we've been talking with UC Berkeley on is how can we support battery manufacturing and testing at Gomentum Station in the future build out, and so there's multiple opportunities here in terms of how we can support, kind of the multiple industries as part of future Gomentum Station.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Aaron?
Tim, is there an estimate of how many jobs could be provided at U.S. Steel?
Yeah, so right now we're projecting roughly right around like 750 to 800 jobs total. I mean, and just based on what we've seen with the other proving grounds that Idiata operates, that continues to grow about 5% per year. So that's just a baseline. And we're being very conservative too. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there.
What did U.S. Steel employ?
About 500 beginning, and then I don't know when it's heyday, Kevin.
In the heyday, we had 5,000 people out there.
Well, yeah, but that-
In the middle 90s, but when we shut the facility down the end of April, we were down to about 500.
Yeah, I think it was 500, yeah.
What was, a good question there. We were at one of the testing facilities, and when we pulled in, we expected to see 50, 100 cars. There were 1,500 cars parked there. That was just the people that happened to be there that day. And on a monthly basis, that testing facility generated 60,000, wasn't it 60,000 hotel rooms? It was nights, because they got to stay somewhere, because there's so many people that come in. It's a pretty interesting model, but the uses, we're very humble on 750 full-time jobs, but on a daily basis, they have 2,500 people there. It's amazing the number of people it takes. And they have expanded that, the world here is, all of these facilities also have battery testing facilities. Why? Because they're going into vehicles. And then they have training for fire departments. They have training for everybody that's a first responder. What do you do? What happens when they overheat and they're just sitting in your garage? They're doing an amazing amount of testing. And Ohio is the only one in the United States, and they don't do everything. And the U.S. car manufacturers, with 50 of the electric car manufacturers on the West Coast now, this is a huge demand. And the opportunity that we have as an entity is to be able to see, first, get the best practices so we can figure out how to apply those in our use cases where they work best. And secondly, to be able to create a revenue model that helps support our county in not only jobs, but in real economic growth, and this agency to help implement those tools that work. Because you can see through the revenue models, there's one projection upwards of $75 million a year. Well, that alone in that model would generate $7.5 million for us. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, but it's cautiously being looked at, and the models are there, and it's amazing to have, Kevin Romack, that was where he worked for many years, former board member. It's amazing how that entity is so cooperative because we're a public entity. And they really have this sense of stewardship and a legacy not to just exit. So, some opportunities there.
I wanted to briefly mention that electrical storage technology is not static. Everybody thinks, lithium ion, we're there.
Yeah, right.
Livermore Lab has more than 7 programs in place to either improve on lithium ion through improved all kinds of the electrolytes and other components, and then they have completely new elements. And so while we grew up with the carbon zinc battery that we're all, remember those, battery technology is not static. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's quite possible nobody will be talking about lithium ion. We'll be talking about something completely different. And so electrical storage is not dead, and it's not static. And what you have in your phone today will probably be different than what you have in your phone 5 years from now.
Absolutely. So, okay, any other further questions, comment? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on this item, either here live or online?
I have no public comment.
Great. Tim, that is a really cool update. Thank you. Kevin, thank you, you and your team, and everybody that's working on this. All right. This will take us to item number 9, which is Planning Committee, and there are no items tonight. 10 is correspondence and communication. It shows that most of the meetings, you can see many of them are canceled. For that, this takes us to item number 12, Chair's comments. I am only going to report up very quickly because we took a trip that was out of state. We did visit the Netherlands on an invitation to develop a memorandum of understanding to view their new ferry system, which, by the way, yeah, it was an autonomous ferry system. It's not in testing mode. It's been running for quite a while. In fact, we wrote on it, and after we wrote on it, they told us, by the way, did you look up? We go, yeah, we see the tower up there where people sit. Well, there's nobody up there. And they were running back and forth. We also saw water taxis that are autonomous. We saw air mobility, a long list of things. But we also were looking at their planning on how the implementation and the expansion of bicycles and alternative modes, which are pedestrian-oriented, and seeing their new bus stations and their new transit stations that have 30 and 60,000 bicycle storage facilities. And they were completely full. They weren't empty. In fact, they're 3 levels high, and the biggest challenge is how people find their bikes. They all have to have air tags on them to locate them. We also visited with the national government in The Hague on how they set policy, and we also met 2 of the vendors that have developed on the priority signal system, the smart signal projects. They're actually, some of them are US companies, but they've been working there longer in the demonstrations and how those signal systems work, and that they've been using it for some time. And lastly, we did spend a day in Brussels at the EU to understand their challenges on policy changes. If you think things are slow here in the US or even California, they got 28 nations, and they got to get them to agree. So to do one little tiny policy move could take 15, 20 years. But it's fascinating what they're working on. We also then did go over to visit outside Barcelona to look. Tim showed a slide on that at the IDIADA's testing facility. Every manufacturer that we know about, the U.S. manufacturer, they're all over there testing because it has the latest and greatest and does things in a faster, clearer way. It's expensive for them to get there, but they also have European vehicles that need to go through there. Very impressive, and to see that parking lot, I mean, and then we went up on the tower to look down, thousands of people working there. And they all come and go every day. Oh my gosh, yeah, you had to get up. We actually, I don't know how we got in the track, but nobody ran over us. I would just add, anything you want to add to? But it was a fascinating trip. You get up at 7 in the morning, and we get back about 11:30 at night, and you start over the next morning. We went to, in the 8-9 days we were there, we visited about 15 cities, and each one had a different proposition of what we were looking at. They are way ahead, the Netherlands, and have been in certain areas. I think the most striking thing we found, I grew up thinking that they were always in bicycles, that everybody in Europe. They didn't even have bicycles in Amsterdam till the mid-'70s. And you go back and look at the photographs and their plan, they pivoted, and it didn't start with government. It started with the young people of that age group, of that 60s revolutionary kind of group, demanding that things be done differently. They're half the size of Ireland in land area, double the population. They're over 8.5 million. Ireland's only 4.5. It's actually pretty dense. And absolutely, I don't care where you go, even those areas that have been famous as being an alternative, it's not. They're absolutely stunningly beautiful, safe cities, and their transportation network is far superior to, I think, we have anything. So a lot of lessons to learn. With that, any commissioner comment? Chris?
Yeah, just an announcement, and that is on Friday, November 1st, the Richmond Ferry will be free on Fridays through the end of December.
Wow.
That's very exciting. It is a wonderful ride, so if you haven't ridden on the Richmond Ferry yet, please go. There's a good deal of parking there. You can also, take BART and a bus or some sort of shuttle down to the terminal. It's a 35-minute ride over to the ferry building. The ferry building is packed with people. It's really great. So go for a ride on the Richmond Ferry.
It's a great ferry service. Any comments from any of our representatives? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. 2 updates on the world of BART. The first is earlier this month we adopted a free and discounted transfer policy MOU. Some of you may recall in many years past we were free transfers. This will offer up to a $2.50 transfer discount, if you will, if someone were to take BART and then jump off and hop on County Connection or hop on Muni. So it's a great opportunity. Folks can use it multiple times a day. So going to work and then coming home. So starting that process off, it is contingent on the rollout of Clipper 2. And so we're looking at, hopefully, sometime in the spring, when we'll see that coming into effect, and we'll start doing those transfer discounts. And then the second item is that the Antioch station has received all new fare gates, and we have a few more Contra Costa stations in the queue. The Pittsburgh Center, which is the other eBART station, in December will actually have new fare gates installed, and then our Concord, Lafayette, and Orinda stations will be upgraded in February. Thank you.
Mark, thank you for that update. That sounds really exciting. Great. Any other comments? Sue?
Yeah, I'll just comment on MTC. We had our last select committee meeting last Monday. You think it's hard to get the EU to do something? You should
Yeah, right. Yeah. I hear.
Yeah, try MTC. Yeah. So the one thing we could all agree on that we couldn't agree on anything. So, but there were a lot of points that were voted on individually on what pieces of a measure might be supported. It was a hard one to measure, really, the support or not support, because when you say a 4-county measure, all the 5 counties that didn't want to be in, then the measure were voting yes. And so, you know, the votes kind of skewed by some of that information. But it will go to our Ledge Committee next Friday, just for information purposes, and then there'll be a special board meeting on December 9th, 6th. What?
Yeah.
December 8th? No. I don't think so. I think it's the 9th. At least that's what they said at the meeting. I mean, it could be wrong, but that's what they said at the meeting, 9th. Anyway, that will be the full board discussing what the next step is, because we have to move forward in order to get legislation in place to move forward for a potential 2026 measure. A lot more info to come. You know, all three revenue measures were discussed: sales tax, property tax, payroll tax. Term length, 10 years to 30 years, was discussed. 4 counties to 9 counties with opt-in pieces. Yeah, so it's all over the board, and so we're hoping for as flexible as a measure that can be passed in Sacramento, so that gives us time to really explore what will work and what makes the most sense. But we'll see. We're also getting some pressure from Sacramento still on consolidation and coordination, and we'll see what happens with Sacramento from there. So stay tuned. Nothing really decided upon yet.
Sue, thank you for that work. And I withdraw my 28-country EU comment. 47 transit offers, that's tough.
Well, it wasn't even 27, 9 counties,
Yeah.
cities.
9 million people. It's actually bigger than the entire country of the Netherlands. Yeah. Great. But thank you for all of that. 2 last things before we go to the executive director report. For those of you who made it to our retreat for 2 days, just a huge thank you for the time, and particularly to all of our staff and some of our consulting team. It was rigorous conversations, stimulating to a lot of ideas and pathway forward, but I think the outcome was consensus towards how to build towards our new countywide transportation plan, which is also the foundation towards preparing a next proposal to our taxpayers on a plan forward. And lastly, we will have, Amara will be working with staff to make this happen. The executive committee met to do part of our annual review of our executive director. We have a recommendation, so we will need a closed session. It will be before our next meeting, same day, but an hour to half hour before. So just note you're going to be here early. You'll get the notice, and then we will have, there may be an action item on that agenda for that as well. With that, executive director report. Tim?
Thank you, Chair Armrich. A few things to update you all on. I think one, I just really want to celebrate this mega grant. I know we've been talking a lot about it, but I think it's really important. And I know Congressman DeSaulnier talked a lot about it, but this is the second largest allocation of funding from the federal government in the history of CCTA. The first one was ARA funds for the Caldecott Tunnel, which was roughly just a little, I think it was like 200 million, just shy of hopefully being the biggest. But that's really significant, you know, and to Congressman DeSaulnier's point, the fact that USDOT is really recognizing, you know, Contra Costa County and the work that we're doing here, I think is really important. And to that point, we are going to be doing a press conference tomorrow afternoon. You just received I think you all just received an invitation to it. Things have been happening really, really fast. It's on the dais. And it's been moving around. It was supposed to be on Monday. Now it's on Thursday. And so nothing beats, you know, press conference on a Halloween night. But, you know, but I think, but we're excited because Speaker Emeritus will be participating in that. So it's going to be really exciting to get her support as well. So I think we're definitely in celebratory mode. It's huge. I definitely want to thank staff and Stephanie for all the great work. Stephanie put in a lot of work into that grant, and really, it was a really huge undertaking to, because the only way to get the money is you have to have a really good proposal to get to the secretary's desk. And then once you get to the secretary's desk, then it's, you know, it's all politics, but you gotta get to the desk. And so, and that really takes, really having a really great application. So, and then the next thing I want to do is introduce Michael Blasky, sitting there behind Lindy. And you can come over here and say a few words in a moment. But Michael has got a really diverse background. We know that communications and outreach has been a priority for the board. And over the last year, we have built out our communications team. So we've got Lindy now. We have Michael, and they are going to be really tasked to really elevating the profile of the agency. And Michael's got a really great diverse background. He has both private and public sector background. He used to work at Napa Valley Transportation Authority. He used to work at AAA, so he's actually very familiar with CCTA and Gomentum Station and how to be able to message and work with new technologies. And he now recently comes to us from Lam Research, which is a massive semiconductor business down in Silicon Valley. So go for it, Michael. Say a few words. Welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, the last time I was actually here, it was on behalf of AAA, and I believe that we were presenting you guys an oversized check. So it's nice to be on the other side of things. Yeah, as Tim said, I have a background in mostly as a journalist, newspaper journalist. I spent almost a decade working in local papers in Las Vegas, Oakland, Napa. Yeah, really excited to take this role. Working with the public is my passion, my favorite thing to do. So it's going to be great promoting the great programs and solutions that CCTA has. And then on the inverse, you know, talking with the public and bringing back their insights to help you all kind of make the great decisions that you can make for the next future of transportation in Contra Costa County. So just really excited to be here, and thank you.
Great, and thank you for joining us for both days. That was great. You get to kind of see who and what we're up to. So,
and he's a resident of Contra Costa County. He lives in
Welcome
Concord.
aboard.
He lives in Concord. So, and it's amazing. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, the work. He's been here about 3 weeks, and he's been doing fantastic work. But one of the things that like really impressed me the most is I walk in the morning one day and walk by his desk, and he's like, "I made a song." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I spent all this money commissioning." He's like, "No, I really didn't do that." But so he used AI to make a song about CCTA. And it's really, really good. We're going to play it
at RMS.
At Redefine Mobility Summit. So it's still in commissioning. So, but it was, I mean, what he did with that and using AI, I didn't even know you could do that with AI, make a song, you know, and it's a solid song. It's a solid jingle. And it's got Contra Costa and all the missions and goals of CCTA and innovation and 10 year, all the great, it's fantastic. So, super innovative and really glad he's able to join the team. So, Chris, you already stole my thunder on the Free Ferry Fridays, so just that's that. And then The community event series. So we just went through the thick of community event series, and I really have to thank staff. Staff has been really dedicating after hours, weekends, to these community event series. We did, I think, 6 in the month of October. So September, month of September. So and so it's been really, really busy on that front. The good news is we were targeting to speak to roughly about 6,000 people, same as we did last year. But the interesting thing is we talked to 6,000, but with less events, which is really, really important. And so now, one of the important thing about community engagement is you also asked us to really get engaged with the media. And so we did play this at the board workshop yesterday, but I know some of you were not at the board workshop, so I wanted to play this video that Lindy created about the earned media that we have gotten from CCTA. And so I really wanted to play that for all of you, since some of you were not there. And I apologize if it was redundant for most of you, but I know there's a few that were not there. So, but it's a good one to watch. Hopefully you're sharing audio.
Transit officials are marking the 10th anniversary.
No video.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. No, that doesn't need to be on here. I know, right?
Oh.
Innovation Center.
Weird.
This is black.
Yeah.
Just maybe the refresh.
Yeah. We'll try one more time.
May have to download it.
Yeah.
He says the time.
Well, it's a really great video.
We'll share it with you.
So we will send this out to the board. You can take a look at it, watch on your own time. But the real impressive thing is we generate about 1.7 million in earned media value with CCTA through these videos, which I think is really, really good. So the one thing building on Chair Arnrich's comments about the trip we took to Netherlands, 2 things. One is we actually signed an MOU and partner with the province of North Holland, and as well as the Coast to Coast Foundation, which really shepherds and facilitates a relationship between the state of California and the province of North Holland. And so we did it, and that agreement really focuses on 3 things in terms of sharing knowledge, working on projects together, and also exchanging people and working with each other. So, and the other thing, and just building on what Chair Arnrich said, I think one of the big takeaways I got out of it was just with all of the levels of government, the really great work they're doing with policy. You know, I know we talked a lot about this at the board workshop in terms of the importance of policymaking, and you mentioned that don't worry about it. We don't need to do video. It's fine. Yeah, we're good. So anyways, the really important thing is that what they did is, you mentioned it started with people, but we asked them, like, hey, how did you actually turn into this car-free city? And the first thing they implemented, the first policy they implemented was parking management. That was the very first policy that City of Amsterdam implemented, was being able to, very difficult to park. And so that was actually what they did. I mean, and this is the tough decisions that they made, but they basically squeezed the car out of the downtown area through parking management, basically. And they made really tough decisions around that. And so now what we did see is with City of Amsterdam, you think about a big city and it being so dense, but we also went to a small city. We went to the city of Volendam, which is only 27,000 people, also a car-free city. So it can be done even in small cities. It does not have to be a large, dense city. So it was really, really interesting to kind of see the different policies, how they trickle down, and how they can really influence and improve both with large cities and small cities. So, okay, lastly, we did go to San Diego Bus on Shoulder tour, and that was also really cool. I talked a lot about that yesterday at the board workshop, but really impressive in terms of the great work they're doing down there. And I talked a lot about it yesterday and the day before, but just the cohesive planning that they're doing between Sandag, the trans operator, and the city, very, very impressive. And in terms of like the board workshop, I know some of you were not there, but I think, and we're going to send out a summary, but just some really big takeaways really quick. I think the big takeaways that I got, and I'm going to hopefully capture a lot of all your comments, is that it sounds like everyone was very supportive of CCTA being kind of this lead transportation planning agency, but I think it was really important that we really lead with the public voice, and because we're kind of beholden to taxpayers, we really need to give them like what they want. But we also need to work like really collaboratively in partnership with the cities. And I think there needs to be a very balanced approach, because I think what I heard from some of you, it's like, we can't tell the cities what to do. Like we can't, that's not our role. And so there's got to be a very balanced approach in terms of like this kind of top down, but also this coordination and partnership and collaboration, you know, with local jurisdictions. And really what we need to do is really think about how we can incentivize collaboration, you know, and partnership also as well. The other thing I heard is that CCTA needs to be very proactive, and, you know, rather than relying on maybe the cities coming to us, we need to go to the cities and we need to be proactive, you know, and so, and we need to do that. And I 100% on board with that. I totally agree with that. I will say that I talked to Amy Worth, and just as the executive director of CCTA, I've done 2 round robins with all the city councils. And I can tell you, talking with Amy, I'm the only executive director that's done that in CCTA history. So, and I plan to do a 3rd round robin next year in 2025 to go visit all the cities again, talk about the CTP and all the policy, et cetera. And so I think it's got to be, again, this proactive approach, partnership, collaboration, but even with this equal kind of partnership, there's got to still be someone, an agency that kind of takes the lead, right, that facilitates. I mean, that's what I heard mostly from all of you, was we need to be that agency that's facilitating, coordinating, being an advisor, you know, to the local jurisdictions and the transit operators. And then the other thing is I know we talked a lot of different things, but just hitting it quickly on some policy things. We talked about the 4 principal strategies, you know, in terms of safe travel, connected livable neighborhoods, growing sustainably, as well as access for all. I think we all generally supported those 4 principles, and that was really positive. We talked about a movement in place framework, and I think that was really designation of roads, but that needs to be done obviously collaboratively with the local jurisdictions, and really be more, rather than being this top-down policy, more of a toolkit or a guide, and maybe think about ways we can incentivize local jurisdictions to kind of use those designations, but then also through that process, we're coordinating between the 19 cities. I think the next day, or equity, I think everyone had a strong preference in terms of having an equity statement in the CTP, and that equity statement needs to be very broad, needs to address multiple demographics, including students and seniors and youth. So that was a big takeaway. And then on the second day, we talked a lot about transit. And I think the big takeaway on transit is we need to better understand where people are going. We need to rely on better data. We need to collect better data, and we need to have and develop a value proposition for transit priority through leveraging data. I think Commissioner Nowak mentioned that yesterday. It's just, you know, what's the value prop? If the city is going to prioritize transit, what's the value proposition? What's going to be the benefit? And we need to really demonstrate that value proposition and benefit. I think we all agree that there need to be a significant investment in transit in the next CTP, more expanded programs for youth and seniors. And then I think lastly, I think what I heard is that CCTA really does need to take the lead in terms of transit priority, obviously in partnership with the cities and the transit operators, but in terms of roles, it was like planning, engineering, construction, but then the transit operators are doing the operations, and then obviously the local jurisdictions are the owner-operator of the local roadway. So, and we need to coordinate with them, and obviously with the understanding that we can't do this without approvals from the cities. And so that was a quick summary, because I know everyone was not there, but that was a quick summary of what we talked about over the last 2 days at the board workshop. And one, I appreciate all of you support. I appreciate your time over the last 2 days. Again, I want to thank staff again. There was a lot of work put into developing those presentations, talking those discussions, the facilitators, particularly John Hong on the countywide transportation plan, as well as Matt Kelly and Colin Clark and the Fair and Piers team. And then I think on the ITP, Ying Smith, as well as the Sam Schwartz team. So a lot of effort went into it. And again, thanks for your time. I know you're all really busy. I thought was very good. We got what we needed from staff, and we know exactly what we need to do over the next 6 months as we prepare for the next workshop in the spring. So that concludes my report out. Apologize for taking so long, but
No, that's great,
yeah.
Tim, well done. Any questions of Tim at this point? Seeing none. Any last comments, questions? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.